Several of my friends have asked me how I'm able to grow so much in container gardening. I don't have space to really, well, it's not my land. I'm only renting here, so I'm only allowed to plant in containers so that they can be removed afterwards and there is no damage to the lawn. Well, I think the main part is growing vertically, and this is what I want to focus on in this video. So I'm gonna start here. I have multiple layers of stuff growing. So if you start on the bottom, I have cabbages on the bottom. I also have a little bit of dill, some carrots growing. There are some peppers that are low level peppers. You can see they're quite successful. They're growing quite nicely. And then there's also smaller plants. I have some chives, and now the next and beans. Now the next layer up is probably tomatoes. These tomatoes are supported by cages, and as well as bigger peppers. And then on the very top, my watermelon is crawling. So there is a 3-tier system of forest. I also have some watermelons on the bottom here. But mostly they are supporting each other. The cage for the tomato is also supporting the watermelon, and the cage for the pepper is also supporting the watermelon. So it's a coexistence. As you can see, my peppers are kind of providing some shade for my watermelon, which by the way is growing kind of big. In the meantime, the peppers are forming. You can see. So good. Also, the layer is kind of protecting themselves. So here is a shishito pepper ripening. I've actually several of them. But the dense population is protecting itself from sun scald here and on Chesapeake Bay. It's been up in the higher 90s for weeks on end. So this is kind of plants protecting themselves as well as fighting for survival, and it allows them to be more aggressive and stronger plants. So cabbages down here as well. Now I have multiple layers. As you can see, before I had peas, so I had the hoop with the lines, and now the same lines are being used by the watermelon. It's crawling all along those lines, as well as a regular cage. This is a heavy gauge story. It perfectly stayed through the hurricane. It did not even try to bend. So, and of course with vertical gardening you have to support the fruit. So my fruit is tied up, as you can see, so it's easier on the stems. Nothing gets broken. So if I transition here, again I have multiple levels. I have my beans. This is actually a second batch, so a second wave of beans. But in the middle of all of these beans, in the container, I have a couple of plants of watermelon. So here is one, just formed, and here's a few more. But this is the latest edition. These are the late ones. So here I have a whole system of trellising. You can see from the iron stands to netting to teepees made out of bamboo. Plants use pretty much everything for support, and they're also supporting each other. Now again, watermelons are heavy, so you have to support them so they don't break. So I have multiple levels of support for them. So here are two of them. I don't know if you can see back there, there is a third one, but yeah. Two nice watermelons that are supporting each other, and they have a stand on which to stay. In the meantime, the teepees and the trellising, the netting supports the tomato plants. As you can see, this tomato plant is very healthy, so the hurricane did not damage it at all. So here is another one. This watermelon is laying on top of the net, so it does not have the full strength on the stem, so it's not suffering. Back there, I have a watermelon again in a sling. Sometimes you have to improvise, so I use pantyhose for slings. Now that watermelon right there, it's kind of hard to see. It's a big one, but so it's standing on top of an overturned pot because it was too heavy to grow otherwise. So here is another forest. I've got the watermelon is crawling on top, and then I have the tomatoes that are in a pot, and they're doing quite well. The season is almost over, so they're beginning kind of to slow down, but there is still a lot of blooms on them. So here are the watermelons. Some are supported by the containers themselves. You can see these two are growing on the edge of the container. I have one supporter here inside, so it doesn't crush the vines. And then this one, oh, this one is actually almost ripe. See how the little tendril is dry and it's beginning to turn color. So this is a fully ripe watermelon. So I have to pick that. Anyways, so again, more trellising. I had to cut a lot of the leaves out of here. I have the early blight that hit the watermelons. But you can see the system. I have the tomato cage supporting the trellis netting, and that supports the weight. Here is another one inside. And I have another one that formed just about a week ago. So it's kind of small still, but it's still growing. I have tomatoes that are supported by the ironworks. Now here I had, before I had these carrots, I actually had a bunch of green peas growing in this container, and they were using this fence to climb. Now this forest right here, I call it my cantaloupe forest, but it's actually four varieties of different plants here. So I'll show you exactly. Again, you can see the cantaloupes are tied up so they don't break. I found the hard way that they can fall, because I had one cantaloupe growing here, and one day I came out and it was on the ground. It fell off. So since then I have them all tied up with pantyhose. But back to the point here. So here I have multiple things growing. I have my cantaloupes, as you can see. I also have peppers inside, and I don't know if you can see them, but they're way in the back as well. And there's some green ones still. Actually had a lot of peppers, so having peppers inside of the structure actually helped them significantly. You can see the leaves are nice and strong, green. It prevented the sun scald, because peppers really do not like the direct sun, especially sweet peppers. And these have survived wonderfully. In the meantime, I also have the eggplant. You can see. So I actually have already picked most of the eggplant, but there are still some blooming and some had just formed. So I have eggplants on the end. I have the melons or cantaloupes on the edges in two corners. So two different types of melons, and in this pot they also have sturdy, very, very sturdy structure here, as well as the netting as well as a little bit of bamboo. So between the three, I have a lot of support and a lot of chances for people to, for the plants to climb up and really use the vertical space. And of course the cantaloupes take over and they climb everywhere. So here is my trellis right here. This is my support system for tomatoes. I have really large, high tomatoes. You can see them. And I had the tomatoes tied up. So you can see the string. But next to them I have lower level peppers growing. Actually one pepper shot way up. It's way up there. So here is the top of the pepper plant. In the meantime, the cantaloupes sprawled into this side, so I have more cantaloupes growing in between tomatoes. The structure again supports itself to where here everything is so tight that the hurricane really did not damage it. Here I have more eggplants. I have these long ones. Let's see, the Ishiban. So these are the Ishibans, and there is a Rosa Bianca had just formed. So I already picked 3 of them, and there is another Ishiban back there. So there is a lot of support and a lot of protection for these eggplants as well. They're not getting knocked around by the winds. Of course, I have these huge indeterminate tomatoes that are grown way, way, way up. Those tips are about 8 feet tall. And last time the hurricane went through, it bent some of the lines. You can see here are the bent ones. It simply could not stay in the hurricane, but did not break. So I still have tomatoes on those. Even though they're bent over, they're still supported in some ways. So they're not dead. And of course the beans on the background are climbing the structure. Now here is another forest jungle. I have another cucumber plant in full production mode, as you can see. I have a watermelon that's climbing on the inside, as well as pepper. So here is a pepper. It's actually protected because the sun is coming from this side, and the pepper has been protected by the cucumber, which gives it a little bit of shade in the harshest of the time. There is the sweet basil. All of the herbs are in this garden, so the herbs of course not bothered. There is the lonely hot pepper. I think it's banana. It's a sweet banana pepper actually. There is some more tomatoes. I originally had not planned to put any tomatoes here, but these were the suckers that I stripped off the larger tomatoes and I planted them here. You can see they're in full bloom and full production mode. So I've got lots of tomatoes on them already. They're forming. But I also have a watermelon here growing on the bottom, so it has a protection. Once it gets big enough, it will reach the support and it will stay there. There is another one that's using the lavender as a support. So things here coexist. Here the tomato is tied to its own support, but the support is tied to the cage, to the trellis for the cucumber. So together they're forming this wall, and it's a lot sturdier. You can see it's a lot sturdier, a lot safer for both plants. Now if I go back here, of course these don't require a lot of support, but here is another one that required a lot of support. I have my old cucumbers. They are still in full production mode. You can see them here. The cucumber actually is really top heavy because I had to strip the lower leaves. I had powdery mildew. It all but killed my cucumbers. You can see some of the damage still live on the leaves. But the young leaves are nice and strong. And it's still in full production mode. Look at that. So it is definitely top heavy. In the meantime, I have the new batch. Oh my goodness, I have to pick this. I'm definitely overrun by cucumbers. In the meantime, the new batch has set in. So here is the second wave that I planted, the second wave of cucumbers. And of course, the biggest problem right now, because of the difference in heat, the powdery mildew again. These are more susceptible to it right now because they're young. And they're already beginning to bloom. So I need to take care of these. At the same time, I have, again, a forest here. The cucumber had grown into the tomato cage. So they're intertwined and they're supporting each other. I'm gonna pull back so you can see well. The tomato cage is well supported, did not break. It's loaded with fruit and with flowers. I've actually been picking this quite heavily. It's one of my favorite taste ones. These nice yellow tomatoes are really, really tasty. But I'm digressing. So more cucumber and tomato overgrowing each other, and there is on the bottom level there is some peppers that are forming. It's hard to see here. Anyways, you get the idea. There are multiple levels here, so everything coexists and support each other. So, just a little shot of my orange tree that really bounced back. I mean, look at these leaves. Nice and strong. I love it. Finally, it's healthy enough to have proper leaves. It was so sick from the spider mite attack. Alright, so one more trellis here. And that's this cucumber plant, as you can see. Again, I have the dahlias here that are growing in the same pot. Dahlias don't take much space in terms of roots. In the meantime, it supports this cage a little bit better. So the cage is wedged between this dahlia and that dahlia. And in the meantime, I have wonderful cucumber that crawled up. You can see it went up and into the netting. So I have two levels now. So here is one vine that went growing along the net, and here is the second vine. You can see they're all growing quite well and they're in full production mode. So this is a pickling cucumber variety, and they've been overrunning. I've been picking 3, 4, sometimes 5 a day, and it does not show any signs of stopping, so it keeps growing. So I'm very happy with this plant. So again, multiple trellises, netting, climbing, anything that you can grow in vertical direction. You just support them a little bit. They will do the rest, and you can still grow them in containers. They don't suffer. And with this parting shot of my beautiful flowers, these are the hollyhocks, I'm gonna say goodbye. Oh, and I have one dahlia that's blooming. So here's a red one. Oh, 2 of them. And some yellow ones. They're absolutely gorgeous. I have multiple varieties of hollyhocks. So, and a shot at the bay. That was that. Thank you for joining, and until next time.